Hi, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. And good morning to everybody here in our virtual YouTube channel of UITM Studio, UITM Chongan Terengganu Studio. So with us today is basically we have a chef, Rachel Young. It's very hardworking chef and very creative-minded person that I ever knew. So hi, chef. How are you doing?
Yes, very good. How about you today?
I'm so good, and we are so be lucky to have you with us today. And on behalf of the Faculty of Hotel and Tourism Management, as well as University Technology Mara Cawangan Terengganu, as an organizer of today collaborative teaching Baking Talk 3.0 with the topic of entrepreneurship in pastry, we are so thankful for your time and expertise in order for us to able to give what the industry currently looking for from the perspective of the industry player itself. And basically, this collaborative teaching is actually one of the efforts for the subject HTC 215 fundamental of baking. So we have so many numbers of students, and I believe they're also external from rather than UITM itself. I believe there were also public participants in this particular virtual sharing sessions. And basically, just to let you know, chef, so for this particular subject is being offered to three different campuses, which are Penang, Terengganu, of course, and Sabah. But Sabah is basically it depends on either they have such intake or not. Okay. Um, okay, chef. So, without further ado, do you have anything you want to give, kind of introduction about yourself first?
Oh, all right. Thank you so much for letting me to be here for this wonderful opportunity. Um, in terms of my background, I have actually dabbled into a few other things also, like for example, R&D, or even in terms of a demonstrator for products and also equipment when it's related to pastry. So that's why I hope that today I will be able to share a little bit of my experience in order to benefit everyone. So thank you
Okay.
so much again.
It is not a little bit, it's a very massive experience I believe you have. I know Chef Rachel very in person indeed, and beside our professional relationship, we quite close together as a friend. So I know her front and back. So I would say she is a very good and talented pastry chef. At the same time, she is also a very excellent academic student because currently she is pursuing her PhD in University Putra Malaysia. She also holds a master in hospitality management and bachelor degree in culinary and food service management and diploma in culinary arts. Very impressive curriculum, I would say. Okay, very impressive resume, chef. Okay,
Oh,
so
thank you so
basically,
much for your kind words.
welcome. Okay, so for the audiences, so you might need to fill in basically the entrance survey, which will appear. The link will appear on the chat box, on your screen. So kindly do and key in the entrance survey. And at the end of the session, there will be exit survey and of course code as well as link for the certificate. E-certificate. Okay, so I'm gonna give a very short kind of briefing about today's session. So today's session being divided into two parts. The first part is basically the floor is basically 100% for Chef Rachel, okay, to share about her experience and expertise in this particular entrepreneurship in pastry. Our specific topic for today, collaborative teaching baking talk 3.0. And then the second session there will be a Q&A session based on the question that is appear on the chat box given by our uh, participants, okay, through virtual. So it's kind of having a two-way communication with the audiences as well. They might have a very practical question that they are facing currently, and some of them might having their own business by themselves, and maybe they can learn something from you, chef, today. I believe that we're gonna learn a lot of things from you today as well. Okay, so without further ado, so chef Rachel, the floor is yours.
All right. Tak ada slide lagi. Ah, yes.
There, hold on. Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much everyone for coming for today. So I'll be sharing my experience in terms of the business that I've created. So you can see that over here, these are also part of some of my products, which I will also feature throughout the presentation in order to give you something tangible and also for visualization. So throughout this business, although it's just a home business, I had the wonderful opportunity to able to make a variety of products, like you can see in terms of this wedding cake that I did for my best friend, or even in terms of the painted macaroons that I guess is part of my signature because I love painting onto things. So as we go on to the introduction, actually I started this business 91 Cakery in 2013. And it began selling common pastry products because unfortunately my skill level was just very fundamental, unfortunately, because I could only bake like normal cheesecakes, cookies, or if but not very advanced items. Yes. But eventually, thanks to the opportunities given through the various orders that come from various clients, then it progressed to become a creative outlet for me to express myself. Because I started out with not much skills, but I developed the skills throughout the journey. So that's why I want to remind that when you start a business, sometimes you may not be able to have the whole skill set, but it is something that it grows together with you. So you can see that even that fondant handbag and also gum paste shoe was actually also a wonderful opportunity for me to partake in. Okay, so if we go on to the portfolio of products, so although it was just a home business, but I could partake into a variety of activities. So for example, like 3D custom cakes according to customer orders. And clients are actually very creative. I can say even more creative than me because they have specific requests that they have for their loved ones, especially when they would want to buy this kind of cakes to surprise them for special occasions like anniversaries. And the anniversaries now are very creative. It can be even up to monthsary. Last time it used to be yearly. Now eventually it's like every month they have to celebrate something. Or even in terms of what you call that, retirement, or even in terms of what you call that, special birthdays, especially when they wish to a specific milestone. So even for cookies, other than the painted cookies that I have been doing over here, I also do in terms like fondant cookies and normal cookies, especially for the festive cookies. And also for macaroons, then variety of flavors was also able to be developed. Donuts, birthday cakes for children, they have a very sharp eye in terms of the characters that they really wish. Like for example, this Finding Nemo, when I had to hand mold the characters, because unfortunately in Malaysia, sometimes we are not able to have this kind of figurines. So that's why many of these also, they would prefer it to be hand mold in terms of the artistic effect. So it's very important that we are shaping it according to the client's design. So even in terms of cupcakes, wedding cakes, and also for chocolate. So these are just one of the very few products that also I've been able to create. And this is due to the fact that pastry is very flexible. It is a medium that you can do so many things. So that's why when you want to do for your business, then you have to consider right now, since many of you are still studying, what do you actually want to specialize in? But definitely after graduation, it was not like I could specialize all of this at one go, like I said. But at least right now, what do you want to have as your signature? So that at least you have something as a foundation, then it will be easier when you start your business that you already have a unique selling point. Okay. So if we go on to the next one over here, but eventually, because of this wide portfolio of items that I was able to do, then I was able to be in terms of a one-stop center for many of the clients. So many of these clients, sometimes it can be mothers who just wanted to do their own dessert table, or it can be also in terms of corporate or party planners, especially. So I would also offer them in terms of various pastry products under a single team. Like for example, apparently this child, she likes chicken. So I had to do like from the left side, chicken cupcakes, chicken cake pops, and then chicken cookies at the bottom. But one was fried chicken and another one also was in terms of the cheeky design. So by having in terms of this convenience as a one-stop center for myself, it was actually easier in order to position myself as a unique selling point, especially because sometimes with certain bakeries during my time, they only specialize at a certain product. Yes. So if we can also see in terms of the next one over here, so this was also very cute. I enjoyed doing this project. This was Sanrio and Friends. So the customer also requested in terms of pink and white theme. So again, they wanted mini cupcakes, and they wanted larger cupcakes, and they wanted a 6-inch cake. But I find that if you talk about in terms of this kind of what size for this kind of fondant cakes, most of the time now I can see the trend is at least only about 6 inches or so, because they are not really feeding in terms of such a big quantity, because it's more for visual purposes. And then also after that, I have the cake pops and the marshmallow pops at the side. So by having these kind of thematic items, it's very enjoyable for the kid, and it makes me feel very happy whenever the parents would text me and show me the happiness of their child, or even positive comments when it comes to being part of their celebration. And the good thing is, when you put a lot of effort into it, usually they will come back, definitely, for their next birthday. So I do have a few clients where I had catered to the birthdays from even when they were born up until they are much more older. And then eventually, once they have a new sibling, then I have another big celebration for it. Yes. But usually also here in Malaysia, the good thing also in terms of this kind of celebratory lifestyle that we have, many of them also then, if we talk about in terms of the children's birthday, we are actually also, they have already celebrated even with the full moon, or even before that is also the baby shower. And if you want to track back, that is when it comes to the wedding cake and also the bachelorette party or bachelor party. So that's why you have to understand that with this kind of connection, many of your orders are connected. So each order that you do, you have to do with all your heart and also to do your best, because eventually then you will find them coming back. So when it comes to the creative process, of course, I do have quite some challenging clients when it comes to certain cake orders. Like for example, this one, she wanted to get it for her partner because the partner was a huge fan of Game of Thrones. So she requested for, especially in terms of the Game of Thrones figurine to be on top. So when I Googled to check out how much is the Game of Thrones figurine, if I could get it online, because it seems like quite a tough project. Unfortunately, it cost about 200 plus ringgit for the figurine itself. And also the problem is when you try to buy this kind of figurines online, sometimes the size may not be suitable for you to put onto the cake. It is either too big because the client only requested a small cake, or it can either be too small because that is the only available size for the throne. So in order to create this then, since I could not use plastic, and also because why I wanted to consider that was because I felt that time it was a bit beyond my current skill level. But due to that necessity, and also because I want to fulfill customer order, that was when I realized that I have to push myself. So it's not that every cake order that you see is something that I feel confident with sometimes, but I try my best. So first I look through many pictures in terms of different angles in order to conceptualize how am I going to design this. And always when it comes to these 3D designs, we always have to start with a basic foundation. So the basic foundation is, it is a chair, definitely. So I have to create it first with a chair, and in terms of holsters, the back, and also the side armchairs, and also the platform. Then only I start to slowly visualize, especially through the pictures as reference, of how am I going to put the swords for the Game of Thrones. But of course, definitely, I know that sometimes with pastry, there are certain limitations to certain ingredients. Like for example, I know that because this one I'm using a mixture between gum paste, which is a harder medium than fondant, and it dries faster. So that's why I use it to form the base of the chair, the throne. So even the spiky part that you see from behind, that one I dry it thoroughly and put a lot of CMC powder or tylose powder in order to make it harden. Once it is only strong enough, then only I start using fondant in order to shape it and also to put the spots. Because if I use gum paste, then unfortunately it will crack faster. And sometimes when it's too dry, it will not be able to flatten against the material. But of course, now you see it's very shiny, but originally I use black color, like gray fondant, so that after I airbrush, then only it has that kind of metallic effect. Yes, because unfortunately, sometimes if I try to use a silver color fondant, after I airbrush, it won't have that kind of contrast or that kind of rustic effect. So eventually, it took me like about, I say, 3 days just to create and slowly make that throne, because it was my first time. And then eventually, after that, after feeling confident, then I start to make the cake, the fondant, coat it, and then only at least about the day before delivery, then I would put the whole throne on top. So you can see that even the cake board, I had accented it with some texture, and I had painted the greetings that they wanted, and also I had also do a very clean finishing. So that's why when it comes to this kind of cake orders, it can also be very challenging, especially when it's something that is beyond your normal comfort zone. But it is also very rewarding, because from this experience, it builds onto future 3D projects. Because I had a lot of different requests, like for example, to make a cap, to make wine bottles, whiskey bottles, or even to make cars, bicycles, like you saw just now, the camera. And the main thing when it comes to these 3D projects, we have to try our best to make it as similar as possible. But definitely, like I said, in terms of 3D projects, there are two types. One is like you can see the structure itself is not made from cake, but it's only made from sugar products, which is gum paste and fondant. Whereas when it comes to the camera cake that you saw from the earlier slide, that one I would have to take like a block of rectangle cake, and then you have to carve. So when you have to carve that one, also carve the cake pieces out, that one also is another challenge, because if you carve anything out, you can't put it back in. It is not as easy. Some people may say, never mind, it's okay, we just use the Rice Krispies and then we start to ship it back. But unfortunately, with Malaysian weather, it start to separate. Not really.
Yeah, yeah. Then it's gonna be a waste.
Yes, correct. So last time when I first started doing 3D projects, many of them I had threw a lot of cakes, extra cake pieces away, because I have either overcut it. One of the other challenging cake projects I had also was Lightning McQueen, because he has such a curved body that you have to ensure that it doesn't look so awkward when you start carving him into shape. But also there are times also where I find that if the 3D project is very slim and thin, like a motorbike, or even because it is also very high. Once you cut it off too thin, it is also it affects your whole overall stability of the structure. So definitely also one of the fears that I have when I made this cake was, what happened if the client brings it for her partner and eventually the whole throne start to deteriorate. So these are things that we really have to take note, because if we see like those cake shows online, most of it is in very good weather. UK, US, very, very good. Not so humid like us. But
Yeah. So we,
unfortunately, our products.
yeah, our weather is very quite challenging actually for the bakers, especially for those home bakers where they doesn't have a proper air conditioning room and etc. So there are different challenges that they have to taking care of.
Yes, that is true actually about what Dr. Safwan said, especially in terms of the air conditioning. Honestly, during my time when I first started out in 2013, we didn't have many brands of fondant. So of course, because I had very basic pastry product knowledge, So I use ready-made fondant. But the problem is with that ready-made fondant, I had the very bad experience that I made the fondant the day before, but a few hours before I submitted to the client, it started to droop down. It started to suddenly disintegrate, and I started to panic also together with it. So in order to rectify this situation, then it caused me to R&D to make my own fondant. Because one thing is it helped me to cut costs, and I had to test it in various temperature and environments so that it would remain in terms of flexible enough in order to withstand the temperature. So it was very stable, thankfully. And also when it comes to, like, you can see the throat. Yes, sorry, Dr. Safwan, yes?
No, no, nothing.
Oh, sorry, because I thought you opened your mic, sorry. So so when it comes to even
Sorry, chef.
yeah, so when it comes to even the structure, like for example this 3D structure, is already very heavy because you can see I put how many layers of accents and decorations onto it. So even the base of the cake, for me, I had to use a butter cake, and then I coat it with chocolate ganache because honestly, I don't really feel comfortable with buttercream because I don't really trust our weather and in terms of the stability. Yeah. So yes, when it comes to at least with chocolate, I have a much more confidence because it is of a harder shell. But
Yeah.
eventually, the client was very happy. Yes.
Even like the occasions of the celebration, for example, for the client, let's say it's for their birthday or for their wedding, where is basically the venue, and it is air conditioning, it is outdoors. So those considerations need to be clarified first with the client, isn't it, chef, before actually we as a bakers can propose what is the best type of coating that is suit well with the the condition of the weather itself.
Yes, that's a very good point, Dr. Safwan, because sometimes we are always behind the kitchen, but we have to learn how to communicate with the clients what can be done and what cannot be done. Yeah, unfortunately.
Like talking about just now, you mentioned about the process of experimenting our own fondant. That is very true indeed, because even if we purchase a ready-made fondant, there are several brands that work very well, but some brand is not. Okay, even the price is doesn't really have such a gap in terms of the price, but somehow the flexibilities of the fondant between brand is definitely it's totally different. So it's kind of you have to try and error, try this brand first, then proceed with this brand until you find a very suitable brand for you, if you opt for outsource the fondant. But if the, let's say, the bakers opt for their own fondant as part of their marketing selling point, so the experimenting process is very challenging, and indeed somehow it's a very worth for the chef at the end of the day when they find a very good suitable recipe for the fondants.
That is very true, Dr. Safwan, because with ready-made fondant, because they have already a standard flexibility, so when you try to wrap the cake, there is, unfortunately, you cannot stretch it as much, so it becomes very thick. Then it becomes very sweet. But because my fondant was much more flexible and much more thinner, I can say at least about 0.3 millimeter centimeter, sorry, around there. So then it would be able to have less sweetness for the customer. So customers, their common comment was they like it because it was less sweet and it looked good. Yes. But like what Dr. Safwan said in terms of the brand, I have this experience also where I knew this brand since 2013 also. It was very popular. He also came up at the same time. I'm not going to mention that brand. But when I use it now,
You better
because,
then, chef. Do not mention the brand, huh?
yeah, do not use. I don't know. So I was very disappointed because I advocated for that particular one. But when another friend used it because she didn't have the skill to uh, make the make fondant, unfortunately, it was very tough. Even for me, I could not knead it very well. And when I tried to wrap the cake, it started cracking. Then I started to also get quite frustrated with it that time because it was like, is there something wrong with me? What happened? Is it a very bad day, unfortunately? So these are the things we have to consider.
So message to the students or to the new bakers out there, it's sometimes it's not your fault. Okay, sometimes the characteristic, I mean the properties of the fondant itself, where the specific brand, some brand they have a very good flexibilities in terms of their fondant, some brand didn't. So you kind of have to explore more, or maybe you should keep interacting or go attend a specific class on this particular 3D printing in order for you to minimize the investment cost involved in try and error for your learning process as well.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Safwan. So yeah, this is one of the creative process when it comes to 3D product. But I love it because when I feel that kind of satisfaction, especially when it is able to look as similar as possible, it is also such a wonderful experience. So this is also one of my creative process when for my signature, especially when it comes to painted pastry products. So I would like to recommend to the students also that because pastry is very creative outlet, so try to pick up something that is creative but non-food related. So that like for example, like drawing, painting. Painting also we can say there's a lot of variety like acrylic, watercolor, because these are transferable skills. Because even when I do shaping, when it comes to like those mini cupcakes, in terms of decoration, I still have to use my hands to shape. So that's why when it comes, so it's very good with this kind of two different domain when you have the understanding in order to merge together. But honestly, to say before pastry, I was also not a very creative person. I've never touched a brush. I have never drew very well also in my life. But when it comes to going into this outlet, then only I felt very comfortable in order to express myself. So that's why with this creative process, of course, we do the fundamentals, which is bake the cookies. But the cookies, again, this was the recipe that also I had to R&D myself to ensure that these cookies are solid enough to be transported and packed, and but they are not too hard when they are eaten by the customers. But also, they are not too crumbly because with one touch, when the whole thing crumble, the whole canvas of cookie painted just disappears. Because the thing is, when you come to look in terms of this cookies recipe also, here in Malaysia, I realized that customers like crispy things. They like cookies that have the crisps. They like cookies that are crunchy. So sometimes the first rounds when I first started doing this, when I gave them soft cookies, they feel like it already, uh, like they say, masuk angin. Yes, it's already not fresh, unfortunately. So I was like, but I baked this recently, and they say no, it's already not very fresh. So they complain about it. Then I was like, okay, I need to look back to the drawing board and see what happens again. So eventually, I first started R&D with this recipe. But when I made the cookies, I made it very thick, too thick. I think it was like 0.5, because I was afraid that it will break. But eventually, I had comments that it was too thick. It was hard for them to eat. So eventually, then I had to add in more flour, and then after that, adjust the baking temperature, bake it longer, uh, reduce the temperature so that it won't burn so fast. Then only I was able to come to this specific product. So then it was easy for me when I also was very lucky that these cookies do not run out of shape. Because there are some sugar cookies, they will run out of shape. So it's very difficult, especially when you buy certain packaging. When the cookie is already 5 centimeter, you have estimated, and you have you have at least about a 4 centimeter cookie cutter to ensure that there will be any margin. But if your cookie spread, and yes,
Yeah, even like for example, for the students who's taking HTC 215 fundamental of baking, or maybe the participant out there or new bakers, they basically have such an experience when they shape the cookies, but after the baking process, the size of the cookies is definitely changed to much more bigger size. So that's properties changing in terms of the properties is something that also need to be taken into consideration. It's not only about baking cookies, the fundamental reasons and of every single ingredients, including the mixing techniques, need to be know why this is why we choose or why we opt for this, why this recipe doesn't turn out to be spread wider, why this recipe spread wider than another recipe. So that's the thing that's very important when we talk about the fundamental knowledge of baking the cookies itself. Am I right, chef?
Yes, it is definitely a science as it is. So that's why students right now, you have to understand the fundamental of the ingredients itself also, because you have to understand that when it comes to recipes also, baking soda cannot be interchanged with baking powder easily, okay? Especially when it comes to cookies. Yes, please do not just change the recipe. But of course, it took me, I think, like about more than 10 times after doing, so it's very tireless R&D in order to develop this kind of product. But eventually I was able to have this type of cookies that if I leave it on the table, because I have to dry them up after icing the cookies, it will not turn soft. It will still remain crispy. So eventually after that also, then after icing the cookies, so imagine, I think this was like a 500 cookie project if I'm not mistaken. So, and then they were quite big. Yes.
So it's kind of like once you have that's a very perfect recipe for you, that's gonna work for the entire your life. And I mean like for the entire business of yours.
Yes, correct. So that's why do not feel that it's a waste of time or trial
Yes.
and error, because this will be your companion recipes for life.
Yeah. So let's say like
Yes.
someone asks, "Hey, why are my cookies doesn't turn out to be like you?" Because there's something that you have to know. So you basically have an answer for every single type of question that come out arises from others among your clique or among your friends when they facing this what we call as challenges in baking and pastry.
Yes, that's true. And also when it comes to this R&D, then it actually helps me to divert into other professions like R&D chef, the food stylist and all this, just because of this foundation. So that's why, so eventually after dipping the cookies, then I painted the flowers by hand 500 times. Then I painted the leaves. And then after that, I started packing. And you have to take note that it will take at least about 2 to 3 minutes in order to put it into the packaging and heat seal it to ensure the freshness. And please mind that if you have 500 cookies and you take about 2 minutes or 3 minutes at least to wrap the cookies, you will need at least about 1,500 minutes in order for packing. So please take into consideration. I did not consider the packing time when I first started out. Yes. Okay, so when it comes to the next one over here, so when it comes to the creative process for fondant cakes, so you can see that the fondant, I was able to do the sharp edging, and also it looks it doesn't have that kind of elephant skin so much. And also because the biggest one down there was actually also a real cake. Yeah, so that one was 12 inches. So 12 inches is really big. I had to coat the whole thing. Yeah. And this amount of fondant, I say if commercial fondant, it would take at least about 5 kg. Yes, but with my homemade fondant, it took me at least about only 3.5 kg at least, because it was thin enough and then I didn't have much wastage. And also because I knew that I always had enough fondant, so I didn't have to worry, especially in terms of the color. So wedding cakes, color is very important. There was one time when I received a customer order, they wanted a full white wedding cake. All right, I did a full white. But what I didn't realize is when I went to the event, to the hall, I didn't realize they were using yellow light. So when it was yellow light, my cake became yellow. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was like,
yeah. Okay, okay, okay.
so it's very important that when you discuss with customers, like Dr. Safwan has said, you have to ask how far is it? Is it away from usually the popular areas like Janda Baik. The one is very famous, especially some of my wedding cakes have traveled there. I always feel very nervous whenever it goes over there because it's going up the hill there. But you also have to ask in terms of like, are the wedding cakes going to be under the tent? Especially when for Malay weddings, the kema is very, very popular. Will there be air condition or will there be fan underneath? Or especially for Chinese in the wedding halls, also will it be like, for example, white light or yellow light? Or sometimes also when it comes to outdoor, is it in the morning or is it in the evening or is it at night? because sometimes you have to understand that when you're doing it in bright sunlight, there's a lot of insects also that will start coming. So I had one customer also, they said, I want like a naked wedding cake that has layered buttercream with fruits and all that in the morning. I said, in the garden. And I was quite concerned in terms of the creatures that may come from the outdoor in order to feast onto the cake. But that one is still possible. In the end, I negotiated and said that we have to keep the cake in the house. When it's time for the cutting ceremony, then I will carry up the cake. And honestly, with all these decorations, the cakes are very heavy. Transporting them inside the van is also very scary. But many of these, we try to have enough safety features as possible. And also in terms of the carrying it up the stage, is always the most defining moment. Even many of my guy friends, they are not willing to help me carry the cake up the stage because they are very scared they will drop it or break it. So in the end, I would still carry it up my own, no matter how heavy it is. But sometimes with the weight of the real cake, that time was like 12 inches. So that one is already like, I can easily say like 3 kg of chocolate ganache, chocolate ganache and butter cake. And then with the whole thing, easily up to 10 kg. So I'm lifting up 10 kg. So please, students, also go to the gym because it would help you in terms of building muscle. Because even for me to honestly knead the color into the fondant, I had to knead it by hand because I can't really use the machine because unfortunately with the machine, there were instances that I broke the machine. So and then also with the machine, sometimes you will over soften it. So that's why I had to get in terms of a particular texture that I wanted. So in terms of eventually layering the cake also was very tough. You have to determine whether do you want to layer the whole thing from your house and then bring it there, or that time this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 layer. I had one that was about 8 layers. So if I assembled the whole 8 layers, it would not fit inside the car. So I had to separate it into half. And then I had to ensure that, so that this was already another nervous moment because I had to bring both to ensure that it's safe, much more safer. So I have 4 that is stacked here and then 4 that is another stack there. Then when I go to the side, I will say a prayer before I start to go and stack it onto the whole thing. Because when you stack, like you can see, there's a lot of not very nice finishing yet. So then I would either have to do the finishing, either putting ribbons or icing or fondant for the customers. But also when it comes to wedding cakes, some of these customers also, they have, in terms of whether they want to do the cake cutting ceremony. So then you have to ensure that you also ask them whether do they have proper cake knives for the cutting ceremony, because that is their most defining picture. Or do you have to provide for them? So these are a lot of things that you have to come into mind.
Even chef like kind of we have to specifically mention you have to cut your cake here during the ceremony, that there will be a specific area so that the entire pictures taken by the photographer, they can see the beautiful side of the cake at the same time the beautiful side of the couple itself.
Yes, that is so
And then
true.
talking about the muscle, and when you have to knead your fondant by your own, sometimes the machine break down. So that's why even some of our students they have to do their uh, butter cake by hand rather than using mixer. So it's kind of a practice. That's the realities. Sometimes you didn't think that difficulties is gonna be happens. That machine breakdown is gonna be happen during the very important time during the process of mixing the cake, etc. But you have to finish your works and you have to deliver the orders. So good job and kudos to the student who beat their butter cake using your hands.
Yes, that reminds me of my diploma days also, and I'm also sure with Dr. Safwan also. Uh, but also when it comes to wedding cakes, definitely then, like I said, we have to use a lot of medium. So like I did campaign flowers, I wrap the cakes with fondant, then I use royal icing in order to do the accents and all this. So that's why it was not that I wanted to do the many portfolio product, like I mentioned earlier. It was just because of this different fundamental element. Because when it comes to cake decoration, usually we will use gum paste, fondant, royal icing, buttercream. So these are the fundamentals. So these are things that as students right now you can also try to focus on. So that's why, yes.
No, nothing.
Sorry. So that's why. So what are your business dreams actually to the students? Because do you want to have a pop-up store that is just only open for certain events sometime or in certain areas? Or like for example, there's a lot like bazaars and flea markets that are available here in Malaysia. Or do you actually wish to do in terms of a physical shop, cafe, bakery, cake shop? Or even do you want to do a home business like what I did? Or even do you want to be a dessert caterer? Or even a pastry cloud kitchen? Because maybe you don't have the facilities at home, so then you rent a hybrid kitchen outside externally in order to use. Because most of these cloud kitchens, they also have a delivery available. But again, you have to see in terms of what is your passion, what do you want to focus on, what is the capital that you feel that you will have. But honestly, when I first started out, I didn't have much capital. It was really starting from the ground up. But these are things that you have to consider choosing properly, because there are various challenges according to each type, and you have to live with the choices that you make. Yes. So when it comes to definitely the overall challenges for all type of things is the ingredients. So the ones over here in the picture are definitely the main culprit that will rise your food costs very exponentially. Like for example, chocolate. Last time during my days, it was when I just started out. I already complained 1 kg of chocolate was not curvature chocolate, just normal baking chocolate was only about 12 ringgit, and I already started complaining. I shouldn't have complained. Now the same brand is already 22, unfortunately. Or even when it comes to butter. Butter, we could easily get it last time for 7 ringgit, 8 ringgit. And I used to feel that it's already so expensive. But now it's already more than 10 ringgit, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So when you are developing your cake menu, you have to take note in terms of the ingredients that you're going to use, especially when it comes to dairy products, sugar, nuts, eggs, cream, unfortunately, which many of these constitute the basic ingredients. Especially like now, when it comes to trend, like when the Basque cheesecake, the baked cheesecake, that really like the burnt cheesecake, once that thing came, all the cream cheese just ran out uh, from the wholesaler, because too many people were buying cream cheese, and it also unfortunately caused certain rises in terms of prices because they knew there was a demand. And now also, of course, the popular trend now is chocolate kunafa. So what has increased because chocolate kunafa, pistachio paste. Suddenly these things became so expensive. Last time hardly people use it. Now suddenly so expensive, especially in terms of chocolate. So that's why when it comes to these products, unfortunately, it really affects us, especially based on the economy, based on the demand, based on in terms of the global events that are happening, which affects the supply chain. So please consider when you are doing your food costs, you have to consider the place that you buy, because of course, buying from a specialty baking ingredient shop and buying it from other what you call that grocers or higher end shops, the price will be much more different. So these are things that you have to consider definitely, and also whether you're able to get sometimes local products or overseas products when it comes to your ingredients. But the good thing is for students, if many of the things, like for example, like my fondant, because I was not using ready-made brands, when the ringgit either goes up or go down and the fondant price also go higher over the years, I was not so really affected because I was still using the basic ingredients, which is the icing sugar, the gelatin, and the all this. So that's why, again, please, when you are developing your menu, think of the long-term implications. Are you able to carry on this forward as your specialty for the next 10 years or so? Because definitely the price of ingredients is going to go up. So you have to ensure your profit margin is sufficient for your survival. But of course, for me, in order to mitigate this problem, of course, then the product line I offer is a line product pricing. So I have from more premium products and also from more basic items. Yeah, so that's why with this kind of different product range, it helps me in terms to cover the costs. Yes. Okay. So that's why these are the things that we have to be quite concerned of. But you also have to understand that sometimes, chef, why not I just use cheaper ingredients? Yes, cheaper ingredients can be possible for certain situations, but you have to understand that it will change your texture of your cake. For example, cream cheese, if you change sometimes for certain brands, I find that if you go for the cheaper brand, because I try to go for the cheaper way sometimes in the past, but unfortunately, I find that it makes my cream cheese harder for the mixture, especially when I make cheesecake. Because I find that unfortunately, especially when you try to press onto the cream cheese itself, you will find it quite solid and not so smooth. So that's why these are the things you have to take into factor because it will affect the quality of your product. Yes. So definitely also in terms of the challenges is manpower. So how was my working day when I did it full time before I decided to try out other things was working every day. Seriously, I did not really have a break so much because Saturday, Sundays were usually kept for wedding cakes. So I would be already busy delivering them myself, setting up and also preparing and all this. Monday to Fridays, I also had orders for corporate because I had a lot of companies that also wanted door gifts or even in terms of commemorative items for their specific events or even like milestone cakes and all that. And then also, I also supplied to caterers because caterers also, they have also the companies that they have to cater to, or even in terms of, it was quite popular, like property exhibition, they needed like mini cakes in order to serve to consumers. I also had to do that. Then also at the same time, I also had cafe supply. But I tried to do cafe supply cake, but it was a bit challenging for me because I was also using like my house fridge and I couldn't fit in as many of those like 10, 12 inches cake inside for the long term. So in the end, I rather go into smaller products like I had to supply like cookies for the coffees of the cafes and whatnot. Yes. And also at the same time during that week, I would sometimes also have a children's birthday order because children's birthday order is usually not confined to weekend. It can be also on weekdays. And also in terms of special like birthdays of their partners, they want to give to their husbands and wives. So that's why every day is a good day for cake for the Malaysian context. Yes. So definitely the challenges then is for manpower. You need time and effort to closing deal with clients. Because the good thing is being a home business, you are able to be the person in the front line in order to advise the clients what they are able to use and what kind of cakes that are suitable for their event. And then you have to be also the one who have to budget for the expenses. Especially you need to consider your monthly expenses for your electricity and water bill and your ingredient expenses, your packaging expenses, and also your delivery expenses and whatnot. And then also you have to be the one to be shopping for ingredients, baking for your clients, also the washing, cleaning, and delivery and setup. So that's why this takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. So because although on my off days, it will still also be towards non-baking things, which is for budgeting and shopping or washing and cleaning or closing deals with clients. That's why I'm saying that it's like working every day. But definitely it is also a very good experience that time for me. But so that's why then in terms of to this manpower, then you have to ask yourself, do I still want to be a sole proprietor? Or also do I want to consider doing partnership with your friends? So that's why now actually even at school, you can consider who can be part of your future partners in the future. Yes. So if we go on to the next one over here. So challenges also with pastry, we have a lot of small equipment. So you can see that from the left side onwards, I have my Madeline mold. For my cake pops, I also need the stick and the stand. Sometimes the stand, I would allow customers to borrow it. Then you have to return back to me. Yes, because that acrylic stand was not was custom for this especially. Then also we have the cream horn, the cylindrical molds. Then I had my airbrush set. This one was given by a good friend of mine. And then also my pastry nozzles that I also have. So I have a lot of these small little things that you will have to put and organize. And so whenever I go to the shop and I would see it's like small equipment, I would just buy. And my friend would actually ask me, why are you buying so many things? I say, I need to prepare myself. Then she said, what are you preparing for? It's like you're preparing not for the rain, but you're preparing for the flood. Because the problem is, unfortunately, when it comes to pastry product, sometimes client orders are very unexpected. You don't know what they may ask. So it's good that it will be, you are ready for it. But unfortunately, because sometimes when customers, they ask you, maybe they need a cake next week for the medal lines, especially like the left side. They need it for next week. But if you want to order it from Shopee, it will probably take some time for you to come. And if it's a recipe that you have never tried it before, you also still need time to R&D. So that's why you have to take account in terms of how much capital you have to reinvest in order to purchase for this small equipment. Yes.
Indeed, chef. And then, of course, during the process of working, some of the tools, especially the small one nozzle, is missing. We couldn't find them, so we have to buy a new nozzle, a new small tool, which costs us fortune. So that is basically one of very important message, I believe, to the students and to the participant into the webinar in terms of managing and securing as well as taking care of your small tools and equipment, because it's cost us fortune to purchase that particular equipment. In the same, I mean, like even in the kitchen, our kitchen itself, during the learning process, during the class, I mean practical classes, quite a lot of things is missing, chef. We even have to lock some. Sorry. We even have to lock some of the tools specifically in order to make sure that this tool is gonna be there after the end of the class. So kind of checking up lists, and that's a very small thing that I believe is worth, because the cost that involved in getting this particular small equipment and tool is not cheap. Okay, for example, a small nozzle can cost you 5 to 7 ringgit for one shape. So let's say you are missing or you are losing 10 different shape of nozzle, then it's gonna cost you 50 to 70 ringgit just to buy a new one. So it's very important to taking care of our small equipment. And if let's say we borrow from the bakers, make sure we return the tools back to them. Okay, it's very important. Thank you.
Yes, that's actually very true. So please, students, when you go for class, please be very careful with the small equipment. Especially when you're washing it for the chef, please do not lose it, because I know sometimes there can be instances when the nozzles are in the piping bag, then they accidentally throw it away. Yes, so definitely please be very careful, because you may not really understand the impact now, but when you're doing your own business and you have to pay everything yourself, then you understand the difficulty as there is. And also when it comes to large equipment, so when you are doing it from home, you have to consider whether what kind of industrial machines that you still want to consider using as for your business. Because they are, like for example, whether you want to have a single deck oven, industrial mixer, or do you need even an industrial bread mixer if you're planning to focus more to bread? Because sometimes with smaller equipment, they may not be able to fulfill your demands. Because like if we talk about in terms of the mixers, definitely if you talk for household, they can easily overheat, especially if you keep on whipping them, mixing them. Or even when it comes to oven, definitely if you have a smaller oven, it will take you hours in terms of baking. But if you're planning to get an industrial oven, you have to consider the wiring of your house. Whether do you need three-phase wiring, or whether do you have you can just able to just plug it in as it is, or whether in terms of the voltage is suitable for your housing unit, especially whether is it a old house or new house, because we don't want to ensure that it is a short circuiting in terms of your area itself. So that's why when it comes to this kind of equipment, again, in terms of capital, because industrial machines are sometimes sometimes cheaper, sometimes more expensive. Like, of course, if you go for exclusive household brands for mixers, they can easily be about 2,000 to 3,000. But if you go for industrial machines, sometimes based on the size, it is so much bigger, but you can get it for the same price. So these are things that you also have to consider. But definitely, when I first bought my deck oven to put into my house, it took me about 1 year to think about it, because do I really need this big deck oven? Because I had to commit the space, the time and energy to also return. Yes. So, and then also after that, we have to consider for your market research. You have to conduct a market survey to identify who are your customers. You have to consider your direct and indirect competitors. And you also consider your market trend. Because current market trends, honestly, I can say that fondant cakes and all this, the trend has already taken a backseat for now. Because yes, many of them, they are more interested in terms of looking good and tasting good. So, and they also wanted it to be look more natural. A cheesecake is a cheesecake. It doesn't have such a very, and looks more minimalist. But definitely, like they say, pastry is like fashion. It will go up and go down. So it will come back again eventually.
I totally agree, chef. Even like for example, last 5 years or last 3 years, fondant is very hit in the market. So everyone looking for the 3D or figurine creatures of cakes, as compared to a very simple buttercream or ganache cake last time, last 10 years. And now, indeed, I can see that the fondant trend is kind of I mean step back, and the people opt for more natural kind of thing. Even we have naked cake nowadays where you don't have to coat on the side nicely. They want to you to showcase the beautiful layers that has been created during the process of layering the cake itself. So it's very important. I totally agree with it. It's very important for the bakers, especially students, to take notes in terms of the market demand and changing, so that they're able to deliver what's the best for the customers.
Correct. So that's why it's very important that you have a wide pastry portfolio in terms of your skill, so that if one thing becomes less popular, you have another skill set in order to offer. So even for me, when I first started my business, I did not really play so much in terms of bread, but I understood that people were looking more in terms of gluten-free product and all that. And because I already also had my deck oven, so then I had to force myself to actually go into this line in order to adapt to market trends. Yes. But eventually, with this kind of understanding of market trends, then you have to understand your customer perception in terms of where your business stands. So as you can see from this perceptual mapping, we have competitor A, B, and C, D. Whether for your mission and vision, do you want to consider where do you stand in between these four quadrants, so that you will be able to have a proper streamline of operations towards reaching your objectives for your particular business. But definitely, we talk about in terms of market segmentation here, like knowing your customers is knowing who your future clients will be. So you have to consider, for example, this is the basic market segmentation, especially when it comes to demographic, geographic, psychographic, and behavior. So these are things that you can consider and visualize. What kind of customers do you want to attract? So eventually, this is, for example, what I have mapped for myself, because business is a growing process for you, because you reflect a lot in terms of what you are planning to do and all this. So that's why it helps to build your maturity, because you are the one who take charge into everything. So that's why these are things that you have to think hard, especially when you are considering for your customers in order to consider for market trend. Okay. So in terms of pricing, like I said, you have to ensure that it is able to cover your costs, because I see that there is a lot of mistakes done by my friends who also had done the cake business, was they underpay themselves. When you underpay yourself because you gave the money to your business, you will find that you burn out faster. You'll find that your bills are not getting paid. You will find that you will start struggling. So that's why please consider proper pricing, especially taking note of the food costs. So like when it comes to the wedding cakes, oh yes,
Like, chef, just to add on that, even for the home bakers, those who doing the business by themselves, it's very sometimes it's quite difficult because we tend to make sure that our price is quite competitive for the market, but sometimes we kind of losing and forget that we also have ourselves in which we have to get a salary for even we are doing the business from home. So that's a very important consideration beside the very clear raw ingredient cost. And we are not talking yet about the electricity cost. Let's say you are doing your business at your mom house, so the electricity is being paid by your brother or by your father or by your mother. Also, it doesn't mean you get a free electricity. You still have to calculate those in the very basic food cost calculations. So for the students or for the home bakers, it's very important for you to clearly identify the costs involved. It's not only direct cost, indirect cost also considered as a cost. Because in future, let's say you want to expand your business and making, I mean, you want to move to the cafe, or you want to have your own bakery shop, for example. This cost is real. Basically, it's not a missing cost. It doesn't mean that because you are doing your business in your mom house, for example, so the cost is kind of missing. No, there's no such thing. So it's very important to consider the cost of you as a person, because you have to pay yourself as well. So that thing must be also be considered in the cost for the pricing for the product itself, chef. I totally agree with you, because sometimes, especially for those home bakers and new bakers, they tend to try to get as many customers as possible, but they are actually making a loss, not making a profit. So that's a very important thing to be considered. Thank you, chef.
No, thank you so much, because I did make a loss also because I underpriced myself. So I was also not making money when I first started for about a year. So then only I realized that as my skills developed, I had to make certain changes. But of course, you have to understand that sometimes when you are increasing prices also, your previous customers may not come back. So that's why these are things that you have to consider. But also in terms like the wedding cakes that you see, some customers, they will just tell you that I want to have a full cake. All the 3 layers have to be real cake. But it's also very costly. And then, but if even for customers, they say, I just want the cake for visual purposes. I want it to be styrofoam. And also then I will also have to negotiate with the customers to let them understand that although it's styrofoam, although it's not real cake, the decorations, the wrapping of the fondant, that still takes a lot of time and energy. So that's why these are, and also maybe some also when you're planning to do, it's quite popular to use real flowers for wedding cakes also, but also please be careful, don't use flowers that are not very good for human consumption. Because sometimes certain flowers that you purchase, they are of different seasons. So please don't promise, for example, I can give you hydrangea in this particular season that they have determined, for example. But when you come to the week before the wedding, you realize there's no hydrangeas available because they are not in season. So again, you have to be very careful with these flowers, because especially when you get flower, when I have used real flowers before, when you put it into the cake, you have to make sure that also you wrap it very well to ensure that it doesn't uh, cause the cake to become toxic. You also can't put it onto the cake so early, because if not, it will wilt. You cannot also buy it too early, if not, it will not be at its good presentation. You also need to make space in your fridge to keep the cake, to keep the flowers, bunch of flowers into your fridge
Now
also.
you have to keep the space for the cake, and you also have to keep the space for the flowers.
Yes, correct, correct. So that's like these are a lot of things that you have to really consider about. But of course, sometimes uh, for them, customers, why they want fresh flowers is also in terms of the symbol that it has towards their wedding. So sometimes they will say, why not just ask them to just do plastic flowers and all that? But sometimes for them, they feel that it feels too, it's not suitable for their team. Yeah, so that's why these are things you also have to consider. But definitely for flowers, it was either real flowers or even like handmade flowers. So I also had to understand how to handmade them, make all these gummies. So also in terms of promotion considerations, of course, these are the things that to consider, like advertising. Now during my time, it was just only like Facebook and Instagram. Now you have TikTok, YouTube, and last time the algorithm was very simple. If I post, everyone can see. last time. Now I post, not everyone can see. It depends on the how is your popularity, what kind of format you have put in, whether you put in stories, reels, posting, and in terms of the what kind of content you do. So it's very challenging to maintain the online presence. I'm also quite challenged by it because it takes a lot of energy, especially since now I'm also doing my studies. And also in terms of sales promotion, the good thing here in Malaysia, we have a lot of festive seasons. So please take advantage of it. Especially like for cookies, you can sell hampers. Last time I had helped my friend because she was also doing a business. She was doing, I think, about 300 hampers from her home business. And it was like many hours we were just baking and baking and baking and wrapping it. And her whole living room was just having a lot of hampers. Yes. So also personal selling, because you are the owner, you will be the front line and providing customer service for before and after sales, and also the product itself. And it's also very important that with the skills that you have, you also bless others through CSR projects. So every year, I have a few friends of mine because they have all different businesses. One, he would do catering, then he would call me and say, "Come, let's do something special for homes." In order to give them a Christmas cheer or a celebration. So that's why this would actually help in terms of building the brand of your product. And coming to towards nearly the end, the operations and management consideration, you have to consider whether do you want to be a sole proprietor or having a partnership, especially because later you have to register your business. But the thing is, you have to consider that being in a partnership later, if you do not choose proper partners, when you want to split from your partners because there is not good in relationship during the business.
Macam bergaduh lah share, kan?
Yes, correct. Because
Conflicts. Yeah.
I have seen many of it. You may be friends now, but when money is involved, human nature is another thing. Yes, yes. So if you, I'm not trying to say that it's not wrong to be in a partnership, but you have to be aware. So when you go for a partnership, you also have to plan in the beginning what
Yeah.
happens when the business does not work out.
Yeah.
How are you going to split the assets? How are you going to split the liabilities?
Yeah. So like
Yes,
everyone have a same understanding or the same page before the event started.
yes, with black and white in terms of their understanding. So that eventually, if like 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, you feel that you have different goals in life already. Because sometimes we don't split because of bad relationship. We split sometimes because they have different goals, different family requirements, different life aspects. It happens. So it's just that what do we do when it comes to that situation? And of course, when it comes to, of course, with the business registration and income tax declaration, because when you're a sole proprietor, the income tax declaration is not so complex. But when you're doing under partnership, for example, you have to also ensure that your partners, the income from the business is also under your partners. Then you will also have to declare the income under your business also as a separate entity after the June onwards, that one. Because you have two times you have to do. One is your personal and one is your business. Because the thing is, I did not consider this when I started doing my business. So I had to hire an accountant to also help me with the accounts. So I realized that doing for partnership that time was much more expensive because they do it was like 3 times more expensive actually. Yes. So, but why is it so important that we have this kind of proper documentation? Also, students may ask, why not I just do the home business as it is? The problem is next time, if you're in the home business, maybe for the next 5 years, and you maybe want to apply for loan, personal loan, business loan, you want to get a car loan, for example, you need to have documentation to declare how much is your income. And also, it's very important that even though you are doing your own business, also please contribute EPF also to yourself, even as a home business. Yes, because you can do self-contribution. And also in terms of food safety procedure, so even though I was a home business also, that time I would wear everything, the gloves, the hairnet, and the apron. in order to ensure proper food safety, and also pest control management that certain people will feel that pest control is not as important when you are doing from home. But because when you are dealing with food, we want to avoid pests like cockroaches and rats and ants. Ants especially. My problem was the ants. So that's why I would actually pay also a certain amount of money every year in order for the pest control to come. It will come at least about every 2 months in order to make sure that the procedures are done accordingly. So that's why doing your own business is a very good experience because it builds you in various aspects from beginning until the end. So in conclusion, is my final thoughts is it takes a lot of dedication and care, and you have to understand that your business, the function is to service to the community. It is not to display of what you can do or what in terms of your specialty products as a person in terms but it's more towards what can you bring value to those that you serve. So yes, thank you so much for your time and everything, and I hope that you benefit from my sharing. And I apologize for anything that I may have said wrongly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chef. Let's give a big applause to Chef Rachel for her sharing session. I believe it's a very interesting sharing session. I even myself learned quite a lot from you today with your session just now. And there are quite plenty of questions actually from the chat box from the participants. But before that, I just would like to remind for those who just join us, kindly do the entrance survey. The link for the survey can be accessed through the chat box. Okay, Chef, that's a very superb, and I believe it's a very well-rounded experience that you compress within 1 hours of sharing session just now. So now we move to the Q&A session. We have quite plenty of questions, and because you are so good, so we have so much question from the audiences. So whenever you're ready, um, can I read the questions and you might respond to the question, Chef?
Oh yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, Chef. What step do you take to make your home-based bakery stand out from competitors?
When I first started, honestly, my time, there were home bakers. I mean,
Mhm.
there were even other businesses, but there are not so many as now. I can honestly tell students right now that if you start now, it will be very, very competitive because during my time, we didn't really have so much social media. But now it is easy to reach out, and there is also so many competitors. But during my time, I stand out because it was more towards my personal selling and also due to the wide portfolio of products. But you have to also understand that with having a wide portfolio of products, you will have a lot of responsibility and pros and cons and when it comes to it. Because when you have a wide portfolio, you have to buy more ingredients sometimes if you are not planning properly. And if you're not careful, you can have a lot of food wastage. But I can say that when it comes to right now, if you want to stand out, you have to be authentic and you also have to work hard in terms of showing the quality through the handwork of your product. So don't shortchange the customers, in other words.
Okay, Chef. Talking about the social media just now, of course, you have your own for the business purposes of your Instagram account, isn't it? And then for the students and for the participants, probably the committee will, I don't know, share the link of the Instagram of Chef Rachel Business in the chat box later on. You can kind of check it out and look amazing work of Chef Rachel. Chef, in terms of managing the social media itself, how do you find like as a now you beside doing your business, you also students, a PhD students, you also basically are R&D chef for a specific brand, and you also basically have to come up with the recipe, develop the recipe for a specific brand for their marketing program. because I know you very well. So basically, I know what you are doing. So there's a lot of things that currently going on. So how did you manage in terms of interacting and posting into the social media? Do you have any tips that you might think is good to share with those new bakers out there?
For me, definitely, if you talk about in terms of like WhatsApp first, because when you communicate with customers or even on Instagram, especially with the direct messaging, or even on Facebook, the direct messaging, when customers text you, it is at best, if possible, that we answer to them immediately, definitely. But sometimes at that time, I may be baking, I may be doing something else. I am not so available to cater to the customers. So sometimes it's very important. Then what I learned was I had to put an auto message to acknowledge that we have received your response. Because the most important is that we acknowledge it. If not, customers be wondering whether are you really active or not? Are you still available or not? Did you read my message? Yes. Or even sometimes it's very important also that we have to on back the scene or the blue tick in order to show, to give customers that kind of confidence. But also for me is thankfully because social media right now for us is really part of our daily life. So that's why it's easy for us to check very easily, just a few minutes nearly every hour, just to see how it is. But it is very tiring sometimes to bring myself in order to communicate with the customers, but I try my best to reply them as soon as possible. Because sometimes if you take them too long to reply, even after acknowledgement, and then when you are discussing, and then you take too long to answer to their queries, you will also you have to understand that you may lose them, and then they will feel that they will go to another baker.
Yes, I totally agree because like the time they message or contact you, they have reached to different bakers basically. So they kind of do their survey first, and then those who are kind of very like very interactive in terms of responding to the message by providing guidance, etc. They basically that particular bond is the one that close that particular sale. Okay, Chef, talking about this particular customers, we have a very good question here from the audience. How do you handle customer complaint or negative review?
Oh, I can honestly say that every negative review that I've ever received, I will always keep it into my heart until now. So I take it very seriously because, but what I realize is sometimes that I can try my best, but sometimes it may not appeal to certain consumers. So students, sometimes, although you may receive negative comments, you also have to understand that if you had tried your best, that is what you could have offered at that time. Because honestly, during my time, when I first started out, I made a lot of mistakes. Certain products, when they arrive at the customer, it did not happen very well. Like that time when I was testing the ganache recipe, it started it reached the customer. It suddenly start when I wrap it with fondant. Suddenly the ganache started leaking out from the fondant before the event. But when I realized that if it is really my fault, I would own it up. I would do in terms of service recovery, in terms of what is required. And also then I would take that as a lesson to improve myself. Because unfortunately, yes, it hurts a lot. Because when it comes to pastry, you are giving up so much of your time with your hands. And it's something that you wish that you create something uh, with your best. But unfortunately, things happen. But the most important is you have to keep moving on and improving.
Even chef, for example, because I used to be home baker business last time before I joined academic worlds. In some of the, let's say, sometimes we fulfill everything that being mentioned or being instructed by the customers. They want this particular color, they want this filling, they want this coating, they want these finishings, they want this particular design. Them even themselves share the design to us to replicate the same thing 100%. We did deliver as what being asked. So it's supposed to be we receive a very positive feedback from from the client, but somehow it's kind of like when they change their mind so sudden, then they think that this is kind of not really what I'm looking for, but somehow we being instructed to do such. So sometimes it's not really the baker's mistake, okay, but sometimes, but it's very important to interact nicely and positively to the customers. Maybe we have to kind of keep all of the evidence. That's why I never delete my WhatsApp chat, okay, so that
Yes, that is very important.
yeah, I can share again. So this is basically what you are looking. This is what you are asking me to do. So I deliver as what being told. So I'm not sure why you are dissatisfied with this particular product, but I believe I deliver as much as close to your expectation and information given during our discussion session of the particular order. So one thing to the bakers out there, even they're quote saying that customers are always right, but in a certain scenario, customer do wrong. Okay, okay, it's not my fault. Okay, so you have to make sure you keep every single thing black and white, so that whenever things happen, because in the current digital era of social media, when they kind of giving in the TikTok, for example, or when they making such video complaining about our business, the customers think and feel they definitely right, because that is their order, so that is their I mean their occasion, their birthday or their wedding, so they want something the best for themselves. But somehow we also do the order based on the requirement, or what we call as design that given by the customer. So that's why we have to taking care of ourselves and our business, because at the end of the day, it's you and it's your brand. So if your brand is collab, you yourself is going to be collab as well. So it's very important to make sure a very interactive and very positive kind of interaction with the customers, chef. Okay, and then talking about the customers, we have another question here about customer preferences, chef. Have you noticed any trend in customer preferences recently, chef?
Definitely, as it reflects to globalization, I start to have orders that are related to like sugar-free, gluten-free, keto, or they are. So the thing is, pastry recipes are very straightforward. We have a set amount of ingredients that are required to make macarons. We have a set amount of ingredients that are required to make muffins and madeleines. Certain ingredients we are able to switch. Like for example, I had to make madeleines that are sugar-free and also gluten-free. So that time, the sugar, I had to replace it with monk fruit sweetener. And then in terms of the flour, I had to replace it with almond powder. So that's why this product substitution also becomes very important. Because if we talk about the past, if it look, customers were all right if the cake, for example, did not have any sugar, they understand that that sugar will affect the texture of the cake, and they will accept it as it is. But right now, even though it's a sugarless cake, it has to taste like real cake. So that's why that has a very high, what you call that, expectations already by consumers. So students now have to be very, like I said, fundamental in terms of their ingredients, so that they know how to substitute in order to get the effect that they wish to acquire.
I totally agree. Even talking about different dietary needs of individuals, that can be definitely a new venture for the particular business of yours. For example, maybe okay, if you are looking for vegetarian cake, or if you are looking for gluten-free cake, you have to check this particular bakers. She is very excellent business owner for this particular thing, so that can be a very selling point for the business as well. So by experimenting, of course it involves several costs when we talk about experimenting, but at the end of the day, when we find the right recipe for a specific dietary habit, is definitely can be a selling point of our business, especially for those who are staying in the city center, for example, like Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, Johor Bahru. They have a very diverse and different dietary habits customer profile, in which they can tap into and can be a new venture income for them as well, rather than the commercial standard customers like us, where we don't have really specific dietary habit beside halal. Okay. Okay, chef, that's a very important point from you. And then let me see, do we have any more question from the floor? Yeah, we did. Chef, how did you get into food styling and what drew you to this field? Because you
Hmm.
food styler, um, for a very big company, I would say, not to mention here, it's kind of PNC. So, how did you get into food styling and what drew you to this particular field? Because I'm beside this particular person who asking this question, I'm quite amazed with your artistic skill in terms of painting. It's not easy to paint directly on the cake or cookies because one is there, you cannot erase the thing. Okay. So it's quite amazing on the skill that you have. And the question over here, how did you get into the food styling and what drew you to this particular field, chef?
To answer your question in terms of the food painting, that one was a skill that I developed during business because honestly, like I said before business, I never picked up a brush before. But it took me about 2 years to actually develop that skill before I can start brushing it onto products without damaging it. Like you said that I would have to have. Luckily, if it was smaller products like cookies or macarons, if it did not work out, I can just paint another one. But if I paint onto the whole cake, like certain orders I have to, then that is only just one brush, one shot, one time. But when
Mm,
it comes to the food styling, thanks to the experience I gained from the business, because we had to do a lot of R&D, then I had to make sure that my products were good enough for social media. So other than that big company also, I was very fortunate to have also other smaller companies where I had to either use demo in terms of their ingredient or
mhm,
their equipment to make the particular pastry product.
mm,
So from that experience, then when it comes to food styling, we have to understand that what are we promoting more? Are we promoting more towards the product? So when you're focusing more towards the product to insert to put into your ingredient, like a type of sugar, a type of flour, then you also have to consider in terms of your equipment. Are you using a mixer or an oven in order to promote? So these are things you have to consider for the food styling. So the thing is also when it comes to the food styling that we have to take note that when you are presenting, you have to ensure, like for example, if I'm using a mixer and I want to present the macarons using the mixer, I have to ensure that sometimes, although yes, my products are artistic, it cannot take away the main message where the mixer is actually the main focus of the food styling or
yeah,
even the particular product.
yeah,
So that was the problem sometimes because when I first started out the food styling, I was too focused sometimes onto the my product itself. But I have to realize that I have to also consider the focus of the company.
yeah,
They
yeah,
are the main star.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
That's a very, very, very great information being given by Chef Rachel. So when we talk about the food styling aspect, it's not sometimes it's not about the product that you develop or you created, but what's rather the aims or the target of that particular marketing program for that particular company. So either they want to highlight about their brand of the equipment, for example, or it could be, if, for example, if the equipment is there, the stars, your food that been prepared is just a side of the thing, just to complement the main stars, which is the equipment itself. That's a very important point from Chef Rachel just now. Okay, we do have another question related to the food styling, Chef. What is your favorite styling trick or hack that you use often for the pastry and bakery product, Chef?
So usually sometimes when the projects I get,
I like the how
they,
sound. It's been there is a lot, chef.
but the main thing is, of course, the output of our food styling is definitely either it can be a video, it can be an image, it can be a standalone image, it can be a carousel, it can also be because digital content can be molded into many outlets, so it can even be converted to become what you call that um, recipe booklet or even in terms of a post or even on a website.
Mm,
So the thing is, what I have to take note that sometimes when I'm creating the recipes for these certain programs, sometimes I have to ensure that the color of the product is able to be different. Like for example, when it comes to if I'm making macarons for that particular program, I will have to consider that not all of them they are pink color. They all have to be like one have to be like the one in the picture that we have here. It has to be white for vanilla. It has to be brown for chocolate. It has to be pink for raspberry, for example. So that's why, so that when you are working with the marketing agencies, it's easier for them to do their props in
Mm,
different color themes in order to suit the food itself.
mm,
Because we also have to understand that your product also, other than having the what is the main focus of the business,
mm,
you have to understand that your product will also dictate the mood of the particular items. I mean, of the setting that the marketing agency will go and decide onto it. So that's why we have to discuss a lot also with the marketing agency in terms of what kind of props they are looking for.
so like for a very big project, so they normally have their own they hire their own marketing, I hire their own photographer team whatsoever. So that kind of communication among the team is quite important in order for you to deliver the best result for the client. Am I right, chef?
Yes, that is very true.
Okay,
So,
but
but
some
sometimes, oh,
okay.
sorry, but sometimes sorry, but sometimes when it comes to marketing agencies, because some of them they might not actually. The thing that I also have to constantly discuss with them also in terms of scheduling. In one day, how many shoots can we actually put in?
Mm,
If, for example, sometimes with those who are lesser experienced but they are engaged with me, they would desire maybe they want to finish at least like 4 5 videos within one day. But I
mm.
say that if this product is very complex, I say we can only do 2 videos in one day. Mm.
Okay, that's a very. I mean, like when we talk about the professionalism at work, is something that all homemaker must have. Even you are doing your business by your own, okay? Because at the end of the day, you are the face or you are the brand of yourself. It's kind of the thing because you doesn't have a very specific uh companies that you attach to. So you are the brand, you are the company, you are the owner, you are the employees. Everything is you. So it's very important to have such a professionalism in work whenever we talk about the food styling project. Okay. Oh my god, so much question here, chef. I'm gonna choose the best one, chef. I mean, like all of the question is definitely the best, but we have a very um limited time here, so I'm gonna choose this question. The next question will be, chef, what advice would you give to someone looking to open their own home-based bakery? Oh, this is very good question. I like this question a lot.
Yes, I do get a lot of those questions also during my years over the time. But the most important thing is, of course, financially first. Do you have
Mm,
any savings? Because honestly, I started out with no savings. So please have enough savings first, at least about 1 year, 6 months to 1 year at least. And also the thing is, uh, the most important thing is students, please consider after finishing your internship, go for employment also.
mm,
Because through employment with others, then you will be able to understand more of the management aspects also. At
mm,
least enough experience because and with different establishments, so that
mm,
in case when you want to consider doing your own business, it'll be easier to direct for your business stream, like I said earlier, in terms of whether do you still, because I do have many friends that they started from home business, then they eventually went to physical shops, and they
mm,
are thriving also very well. But the
mm.
most important thing is money and experience first, and then also building up your skill,
Yeah, yeah.
because try as much as possible also to go through platforms like YouTube or even for classes, because YouTube now, many of the things that they show are things that in the past we used to pay a lot of money in order to learn.
Mm,
But these are really wonderful things to learn on YouTube, especially from the basic to the advanced. So like you see the royal icing cookies that I've been doing is so advanced, but actually all these also I have learned also from YouTube last time also.
mm-hmm.
From, and honestly, when I first started, it was not very aesthetic products also. So it takes a lot of time and practice.
It's kind of progressing learning process, then you be a better person, the better version of you in terms of skills. Chef, talking about skills, this is basically one of important question that I would like to you to respond to these particular questions. Chef, have you attended any baking workshop or classes to enhance your skills? Because this is my add-on, because you have a very excellent skill and you develop throughout your career, throughout your time. Did you attend to any baking workshop or classes to enhance your skill, chef?
Constantly, because I have many of my teachers who are the mentors, and then they have taught me a lot. But because so it was quite tough because a lot of the money I was putting it reinvesting into the business,
Mm,
but I also use the money to reinvest to myself.
mm,
In terms of at least getting the foundation of how to do certain products. But you
mm,
have to understand that although you may go for classes, you have to keep on practicing to develop into your own style.
mm,
Yes, because there's no point of being a copycat because you have to still be able to make products that align with your personal branding. But nonetheless, if right now you may find that it's quite challenging to also still go for additional classes. I also last time I used to go for a lot of, if you go to Facebook, there's a lot of PJJs actually. Yes, you just pay like 20 ringgit, 30 ringgit just to watch videos and to be in a community, because over there then you can ask questions, you can also troubleshoot and ask the seniors what is wrong with your product and all this.
even
Or
Yeah, even nowadays, chef, we do have quite a lot of micro credential costs for the cake decoration, for bakery, for the bread making, etc., which is free of charge. But somehow, I believe that to those outsider, it's kind of you must have a self motivation in order for you to improve yourself intellectually as well as in terms of skill development. Because by doing the same thing, you will not able to enhance or improve yourself much. So you need to get an external or I don't know outside exposure for you to improve and for you to look into different perspective or different dimensions so that you're able to improve yourself and at the same time you're also able to improve your business and your skills. Okay, chef. Hold on, chef. Before that, for those participants and those in this particular virtual sharing sessions, kindly fill in the exit survey because we're almost at the end of our program. So the exit surveys basically has been shared in the chat box by our committee. So kindly fill in the exit survey. Thank you so much. Okay, chef. Uh, I'm gonna grab another two questions before we finish our session. So my second last question will be not my question now. I mean the question from the participant in these virtual rooms. Okay, chef. Um, how you did during your study and what you learned during your study that you think valuable and useful for you today?
ah, definitely. Honestly, to be honest, when I first started culinary, my culinary skills also were very minimal. I
Mm,
only started learning how to bake also at the age of 20. Yeah,
mm,
so it was not like I started like some people. I love baking since primary school, high school, and all this. So I also started like some of you students from scratch from now,
mm,
as you are all in the program. So definitely a lot of technical skills I have learned from the university, but it's also the thing that I took for granted was the management skill.
mhm,
When I go for theory classes, especially,
mhm,
I didn't really took notice of how important was menu planning, cost control. I only felt like technicals was more important. But when I started doing the business, when I had to do the theoretical part in action, especially like next time, I'm sure for some of you will be also learning more management subject like the HR and also all this. So
accounting, marketing, cost
yeah,
control.
Yes, and then I'm sure all of you also be wondering, is like, why must I take these subjects? Why must I take the exam? Why do I have so many assignments? But once you graduate and you have to do all of this in order to function as a business, so please take seriously for your studies right now because it will help you. So I can honestly say that having the culinary program from different universities here in Malaysia, all of them, they have delivered one thing, which is in terms of building us to be ready for industry. So everything that you have learned, take it to heart. Whatever your teachers, your lecturers have shared with you, also they have shared it with their expertise and with their effort. So please ensure that you appreciate it accordingly.
So like it's not only like for the culinary program only, of course for other practical enhanced programs such as hotel management, food service management, even tourism, and other different pastry diploma in pastry or bachelor degree in pastry whatsoever. We have so many different type of skill based program nowadays in higher institution, I believe so. And under the umbrella of hospitality and tourism field or industry program, is very important actually to be well integrated in terms of the on-hand skills as well as on the uh, theory part of the program, because at the end of the day the curriculum being developed and being structured accordingly in order for the students to be well prepared before they come into the real world, experiencing the real world of adults, for example, chef. So that's a very good sharing from chef. So I believe that learning process is very important, even since your formal education, if you are taking diploma, for example, or even if you are taking SPM. So whatever the educations that you being into right now is very important, because it is basically uh, one step forward for a better version of you, and of course at the end of the day for the long term, for your career growth as well. Okay, chef, a very last question, chef. Okay, chef, is there anything that you want to highlight or you want to summarize this entire almost 2 hours sessions to our fellow attendees and our fellow participant here in this virtual room, chef?
Definitely, when it comes to the business, why I was able to execute it very well was due to the support of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Support from my family, support of the clients, because eventually when you deal with a lot with the clients also, you develop very good relationship with them until they have even become your friends. So that's why it's very important that although you are doing a home business, although you are standalone, you are within a community. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to position yourself as much as possible to interact with the community, because without their support, you will not exist as a business because you are serving to the community. And also,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, whatever skills you have developed, try to give it back to the community, because in the future, I hope that after I finish my studies, I would also use my skills to go into NGOs and also to teach others in order so that they are able to upskill their life with the skills that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So please also do not keep the skills that you develop for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Chef, for your answer and response to the questions. And I believe this is the end of this particular sessions. And just a soft reminder to the attendees and participants. Basically, first thing first, for those who join in us, you have to fill in the entrance survey. You can scroll up to the chat box. In the chat box, you have to fill in the entrance survey, and then you have to fill in the exit survey. And last but not least, at the end of these sessions, after we um, summarize the entire session afterward, so there will be QR code appear on your screen, and the link also will be given in the chat box for the e-certificate. So you have to fill in those link or scan those QR code in order for you to get e-certificate for our today collaborative teaching Baking Talk 3.0 for HTC 215 Fundamental of Baking on the topic of entrepreneurship in pastry. Okay, Chef Rachel, I believe that's the end of today's session. On behalf of the Faculty of Hotel and Tourism Management, University Technology Mara, Cawangan, Terengganu, we thank you for your contributions, time, and effort. And thank you so much for giving us with a very important informations and of course with a very industrial based input from your own experience. That is it from me. I am Muhammad Safwan Abdul Latif from Sunway University and UITM Cawangan Terengganu, and our beloved Chef Rachel, R&D chef and food stylist, as well as the owner of 91 Cakery. Thank you so much, Chef. And of course, to all others participants, thank you for being with us since beginning until the end. See you again on the next Baking Talk 4.0 with a new input, with a new chef that we're going to invite purposely to share with you input from industry to the academic world. Thank you so much, Chef.
Thank you
Have
so much, Dr. Safwan. Have a nice day too.
bye bye, Chef. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.